The sky was streaked with golden hues as Ethan stepped into Aokigahara Forest, the sea of trees. Just beyond the base of Mount Fuji, the dense canopy held an eerie, enticing allure, drawing in curious souls like him. Tales of lost wanderers and restless spirits had been the fodder of online forums and YouTube videos he devoured for weeks. Now, finally here, he was ready to see for himself what made Aokigahara infamous. Armed with his camera and a small flashlight, he ambled through the trail. The forest seemed alive, thick with sounds, whispers of leaves, the faint call of birds, the murmur of distant streams. The sunlight that barely seeped through the dense foliage grew dimmer by the minute, and Ethan realized he had wandered far from the main path. Shrugging off a growing unease, he walked on, feeling the forest press in tighter, swallowing sound, darkening in every direction. When he pulled out his phone to check the time, it was already past 6 p.m., and the faint bars of reception had disappeared. Panic prickled his spine, but he tamped it down and took a deep breath. "It's just trees, Ethan," he muttered, his voice a quiet rasp. Just then, a soft voice echoed through the trees. It was impossible to make out the words, but it was unmistakably human. Ethan felt a sliver of relief. Someone else was here. Maybe even another tourist who knew the way out. "Hello?" he called, but his voice seemed to vanish as soon as it left his lips. The voice murmured again, closer this time, but it was as if the forest swallowed the sound. Shadows slipped through the trees, darting just beyond his vision. Ethan's heart drummed in his chest. He swung his flashlight around, illuminating gnarled roots and twisted branches, but saw no one. With every passing minute, the forest grew colder, darker. Each rustle, every sigh of wind seemed to carry a whisper, a ghostly breath brushing past his ear. Desperately, he pushed forward, hoping to stumble back onto the path he'd lost. But the trees only grew thicker, twisting into grotesque shapes, as if taunting him. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him. "Come. Stay. Join us." A gust of wind brushed against him, but it felt wrong, icy and thick with something ancient. Shadows gathered before him, materializing into forms that pulsed with a life both strange and terrifying. The shadows were human-like but distorted, faces twisted, mouths gaping in silent screams. Their eyes were voids, black pits that seemed to stretch on forever. Ethan backed up, stumbling, but the spirits closed in, their whispers weaving around him like a net. He felt his body grow heavy, each step harder to lift. His throat tightened as if unseen hands were pressing down on his neck. His heart pounded harder, faster, until it was the only sound he could hear. "Don't fight," a soft, sibilant voice hissed close to his ear. The spirits' faces leaned in, inches from his own, their expressions contorting from despair to cruel glee. He tried to scream, but his mouth was frozen, locked in silent terror. His vision blurred as shadows engulfed him, their cold, dark presence seeping into his skin, his bones. And then, nothing. His vision faded, his thoughts grew distant, scattered into the wind that drifted endlessly through Aokigahara. The following morning, the sun was bright, casting an ironic warmth over Aokigahara. American tourists Lauren and Mike were trekking along the marked path, marveling at the forest's haunting beauty. They'd read about its unsettling history, but brushed it off as superstitious nonsense. They came upon a small clearing and Lauren gasped, clutching Mike's arm. Just a few feet away, a man sat slumped against a tree, his head tilted back. His face was pale, mouth agape, eyes wide open, and staring into the canopy above. His body was still, as if frozen mid-scream. Is he, you know?" Mike whispered, his voice barely audible. They moved closer, and Lauren's heart skipped as she took in the man's twisted expression of horror. His clothes were muddy, and his hands were scratched raw. He looked as if he'd been struggling against something unseen. A faint whisper drifted through the trees. Lauren whipped around, heart hammering. She couldn't see anyone. Did you hear that?" she asked, voice shaky. Mike nodded, wide-eyed, staring into the forest. Then, between the trees, they saw a shadow, a dark figure slipping silently between the trunks, just out of reach, but close enough that its outline was clear. It paused, and for a brief moment they saw the face, pale, with hollow eyes and a mouth stretched in silent agony. It looked hauntingly like the man slumped by the tree. The couple stood rooted in place, unable to look away, as the whisper came again, this time chillingly clear. "Come, stay." The shadow drifted deeper into the trees, and, as if on cue, the wind carried a scream that seemed to echo through the entire forest. The couple stumbled back, the forest's whispers now louder, insistent, inviting them to join. Without another word, they turned and ran, but the whispers followed, slipping between the leaves, calling them back into the dark. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more twisted Twilight tales, and look for scary reads on Amazon using the affiliate link in the description below.